Sculptor Nick is beginning the restoration of a 19th century artwork by August Kane. With badly crumbled corners, he plans to rebuild one section so he can make a mould and repair the other sides. Mixing the new plaster using powdered lime and water is an art in itself.
You basically get little handfuls and you powder it in finely, very nice and slowly all over. A lot of people make the mistake of mixing it straight away and then getting another lump. Don't do that. It's really important to just powder it in and let it take its own place in the water. As you do this, basically it's called islanding. Eventually, you'll see a little island coming up and it'll sit on the surface like this. You can see it happening now. Once it starts to island, it's ready to mix. The moment you've mixed it, it's time to start working because it's only got about 10, 15 to 20 minutes setting time. So I'm going to start throwing it on now. It's just literally being nice and messy with it into the areas that I need to throw it. I'm filling all the gaps that need filling because then I'm going to go over these gaps with this flat tool that I've got. As you're doing it, you scrape off the excess plaster that I've thrown on. And I'm following the straight contours of the actual cornering or the lines. A lot of people make the mistake trying to go over it and cleaning it off with a sponge. Never do that. If it doesn't look quite right, just keep going over with the flat edge, and then throw a little bit more wet plaster on, and then go over again with the flat edge. Never touch it with a sponge, because you just end up softening the whole thing. And you want this to be nice, crisp and clean to its original state. I've got some mixed up silicone rubber. I'm now just pouring this into the cavities of the corners, where most of the detail is.
While it dries, the silicone will be held in place by a hard cap, made from a super strong Herculite plaster. Applied on top, layers of loose weave linen, called scrim.
So I'm just strengthening it with scrim. This nets the plaster together, and if you get any, when you're taking it off, if it cracks, this will hold it together. Slap it on like this, because it's the best way to get it tight onto the cast, and it seems to just hold in place. When you're doing dirty jobs like this, allow yourself to make a mess. Don't be precious. You start trying to be clean and precious, you just don't have the time for that. Just throw it on, make a mess, and enjoy it.
When he's satisfied that he's created a good, strong plaster jacket, Nick leaves it to set hard or go off. And after 30 minutes, it's time to see if it's worked.
This is nicely set now, this hard jacket, the plaster. It's not as easy as it sounds taking a jacket off. It's very tightly set onto this cast, and I'm hoping that it doesn't take off all the good work that I've done, in the actual sculpting. It's quite frightening, actually, taking a mould apart from a master like this, because you only get one try.
Nick drills holes in the plaster to break the vacuum between the layers, making it easier to lift off.
So obviously you don't want to go in too deep. You just want to touch the silicone because you don't want to damage the actual surface of the sculpture. I hate taking moulds off. Wish me luck. Mate, perfect. It's a good idea to roll it off so you don't get any pulling or sucking. Oh, amazing. Got a really perfect detail. It's really picked up every angle and every line. This mould is now going to allow me to cast a brand new corner. It's going to look perfect. The mould's come out beautifully, so I'm really happy. Great.
To replace the duck's right foot, Nick starts by taking a mould of the left one, using a meltable plasticine, which only takes 20 minutes to cool before it's ready to turn out.
This looks great. We've got a quarter of the foot still here, so we can see that how it's spreading out, and actually it fits pretty well. So we start sculpting. I'll just have to sculpt the actual webbing on the back of the foot here. What I'm going to do now is just put some little wood pins in, and what I like to use is just some toothpicks, so I can actually attach this properly. So it's really important to keep stepping back on something at this size and seeing it from a distance. It really shows you the proportion and the movement and the gesture that you're trying to get. Again, you've got to put yourself in the mind's eye of the bird. This duck's being killed, so if you imagine it trying to scramble away. So it's just trying to put that animation into it, and I'm sure that Cain would have been, thinking the same thing. That's how he put life into his work.
This plasticine sculpted piece will be used to make a mould. Nick will use that to cast it in plaster, so it's vital this is inch perfect.
I'm using a little bit of artistic license to exaggerate those forms and just give a real sort of textural and tonal effect. Especially with August's style, he wasn't afraid of exaggerating those forms, and actually it makes it more realistic. It hits the mind, and you're able to see that movement. He doesn't just do every single bit of fur, he gives the gesture of fur, and your mind makes the rest of that up, and that's why it really works. There's nothing better than the onlooker's imagination, and it's really important that his vision for this piece is in all of it. And actually the extremities, like the hands and the face and the beaks, they're where the movement finishes. So they're the bits that really give the expression of emotion of the animal. It may only be a foot, but actually it's a huge part of the bird's personality. I'm really happy with that. It goes well with the style. I think I've done that justice.
Sculptor Nick is close to completing the restoration of a piece by one of his all-time art heroes, August Cain. The powerful falcon wingtips have broken in time, so he's using a soft water-based clay to model for a mould.
So with this clay, I'm just being very fluid and very quick and very gestural. This isn't about trying to make something too graphic, it's about trying to make the form and the movement work to go with his style. So obviously with this clay, it's quite wet, so I want to just soften them back a little bit with a sponge and some water. Just makes them a little bit less obvious to follow the way that his looked.
Once the new sculptured repairs are complete, Nick will use the clay to make moulds for the final pieces.
Now these are sculpted, I'm going to mould them, cast them in the original plaster, put that plaster back on, and they'll be good as new, hopefully.
2 weeks ago, this broken down artwork was collapsing on all its corners, and its birds missing many body parts. Now it's gallery ready once again, with all its plasterwork restored to perfection.
I'm really proud of this. I was born to do this one. Everything I've done in my life was leading up to being able to refurb that. It's just so lucky that I've got it. I'm just, it's kept me up at night. I'm that happy.